That's a wonderful Unity poem. It's been around for a long time, but I've not heard it set to music before. I know the words, and I didn't have to look at, because I can't really see the slant. Wherever we go, God is. Well, Beth, I called her, I think, in January, and said, I'd like to do my thing at your church. And she didn't remind me that I had been here a long, long time ago. It seems as though people recognized me. I was very sort of pleased about that, because I didn't recognize them. But I recognized I was out starting to put my things out in the fellowship area, and that big black sort of table where the goodies go, I started to put things out. I've been here before. That's what I remember, the big black table. And then people started to remind me, oh yes, you were here, and no one can remember when. And apparently that part didn't affect anyone, but so Beth said, oh, by the way, you can come in May. She says, but this is, I think it was January, I'm pretty sure. Could have been March, but I think January. She says, I've already got my titles through June or something. Does she do that? Yes. That's amazing. I usually, what makes me do that is when there's a monthly bulletin, then I do 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's it. And then the next month, just a week before the next month starts, I do 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's it. But months ahead. So she said, can you talk about Jesus as a healer? I said, I think I can imagine. There's a good chance I can do that. So that's how I got my lesson title from her. And it has been wonderful sort of preparing myself to talk with you about that today. Because my work we said, how long did it say I was? 13 years. How long? Yeah, at least 30 years, yes. Over what?
Well, the doctor's it says over 40.
Yeah, well.
And yours says 30 plus. I didn't emphasize the plus.
And I'm 50 plus.
You started very young.
Yeah, I was 10. Ordained, and I was just talking to a lovely woman over here. Jane. And she said she helped us start this church, and she told me how many years ago it was, and she said she started when she was 5. So Jane started this church when she was 5 years old. That's wonderful. So it's delightful to be with you and to be able to talk about Jesus as healer, because fully 40% of everything we know about him in the New Testament is about healing. Did you know that? 40%. It's a lot. It's a lot. And fortunately, Unity School began with a commitment to healing. Now, almost everyone knows that Myrtle Fillmore was healed, and that really was the start of everything. She had what they called consumption, which we now call tuberculosis. Her family had it, and she was getting weaker and weaker and weaker, thinner, and it looked like she was not going to make it. But she heard a lecture, which I sort of like that, a lecture by a minister from Illinois Metaphysical College, came to Kansas City, and he said something about, you do not inherit illness. You can speak to the very cells of your body. And she did, and began to get better and better and better and better. And lived many, many decades after that time. So then, Unity began to develop. Charles Fillmore, as you probably know, was a great writer. He wrote all kinds of things. He had a magazine, the Unity magazine, that was the title of it. It went all over the country. And in the March of 1914, in the March 1914 Unity magazine, he wrote about healing and talked about a new organization within Unity that he and Myrtle had founded. And it was a hands-on healing ministry called Silent Unity. Anybody heard of Silent Unity before? It's our worldwide prayer ministry. Now, hundreds of thousands of prayers every year. But it started with the Fillmores and two other couples whom you could call on the phone. They had phones, barely had phones then. You could call them on their phones, these three couples, the Fillmores and their two couple friends, and go to their homes, and they would lay hands on you and heal you. And that's how Silent Unity started. That's it. It wasn't a prayer ministry. We love their prayer ministry. But it was a hands-on healing ministry. And it did that for years. In fact, the wonderful church that they built on the plaza, Unity Temple on the plaza in Kansas City, had a series of upper rooms. On the highest level, and it's a tall building, there were these little rooms about the size of your master's room closet. My wife, Heidi, stand up, Heidi. This is Heidi, my wife. We have a lovely home in Vero Beach where they decided that the closets would be vertical. So visualize this. In my closet and her closet, we have ladders. Ladders. And things get hung up way higher than this. I could almost reach this ceiling. It's a 12-foot ceiling. And so I was talking about the healing rooms in the Unity Temple, the size of your master bedroom closet. Well, ours is like this. It wasn't like that. It was like this, about the size, let's say, the size of your bathroom. And you would walk into the room, and there would be a lovely woman. They were all women. No surprise. All women, and they were dressed in white. And you would sit down, and they would walk around you, and they would lay hands on you and pray with you, and you would be healed. And that's our tradition. That is our tradition. And that's what brought me there. And Charles said in that article, in that 1914 article, he said, we are going to do this work, and we will be justified by the results. By the results. He was, I did not know Charles, of course, but I really would have liked him because he insisted that there be results. Unity was a process of Christian teaching, yes, the teachings of Jesus, which I'm going to get to in a minute, the teachings of Jesus, but those teachings to produce results in your life. For many, many years, there was a sign in front of Unity Village. Unity School of, and there was another word, of practical Christianity. Atta girl. Maybe you were here since you were 5. Anyway. Practical Christianity. That's what he insisted on. It has to work. And he called forth the teachings and example of Jesus as his guide, his director, and the way they set Unity up. So, Jesus was a healer. He healed, as I've said, 40% of everything in the scriptures about him has to do with his healing. How did he heal? I could use some help here. I might not know how Jesus healed. How did Jesus heal? What did he looked upon someone and what? Good. What?
He saw them well.
He saw them well. There was we're going to help you now. This is a lesson, by the way. It says, what does it say I'm doing? A talk. No. The Fillmores never gave talks. They gave lessons, which means you need to respond and give the correct answer. or else. So Jesus, this will help you. There's a story in the scriptures, a rich young ruler it's called, and I don't quite know what that is, but a leader apparently. A rich young ruler came up to Jesus and said, Master, how shall I inherit eternal life, or a full life? And Jesus looked at him and said, sort of gave him in the textbook, people are always running up to him and asking him questions. Well, honor thy father and the mother and obey the laws and so on and so on. And the young man said, that I have done since I was a youth. And then there's this wonderful, wonderful phrase in the scripture. And Jesus looked at him and loved him. And he said, give what you have. Give what you have to the poor and come and follow me. And the young man who had much went away sorrowful, not realizing he had just been invited to be a disciple. But he went away sorrowful because he had much. His riches, what he had, stopped him. He went away sorrowful after that invitation. But Jesus looked at him and what? Loved him. It is love that heals. Love and very gentle touch. You look in the scriptures, you're going to see on virtually every occasion that Jesus was involved in healing, he touched the person with whom he was working. Gesundheit. He touched the person very gently often. There was the man who's called the Bethesda invalid. He had friends that took him to the healer. There's a pool in Bethesda, Bethesda part of, it's not Bethesda, Maryland, so the Bethesda pool in Jerusalem. And the idea was that when an angel riffled the water, the first one into the pool got an immediate healing. Very interesting. So this man had friends, and for 38 years carried him to the pool. Talk about codependency. They needed a 12-step program of some kind. Anyway, but the problem was, since he was lame, someone always got into the pool first. But for 38 years, he was carried to the pool. And Jesus said to him, came up to him and said, basically, what are you doing here? And the man explained, well, I come here all the time. And I want to get into the pool during that moment where an angel riffles the waters, but someone else always gets in there first. Got a perfect excuse. He was lame. And Jesus said, why don't you pick up your bed and walk? And he did. Jesus lifted him up, and away he went carrying his bed. And he said, go to the temple and tell them you've been healed. Which got Jesus into trouble because people kept coming to the temple and telling the Sanhedrin that they'd been healed by Jesus. And they went, who? After a while, it wasn't who anymore. It was that fellow from Nazareth who healed him. And that got Jesus into a lot of trouble. And we won't go through all of that. Tune into, is it Rona? Who's the one that's doing this series on the Bible? Any of you watching that besides me? I'm the only one in the whole room. A.D., yes. Yes. Yep. It's after, it's Acts. It's after the resurrection, right. Anyway, so that's wonderful. But it's the disciples as they're sort of getting their act together, more or less, to do the work that they're supposed to be doing. So, anyway, so Jesus healed. He healed with love, and he healed with touch. Healing touch. Holding that person as beloved and lifting them up, placing a hand on their head. Jairus' daughter, he said the child is not dead. They believed she was dead, and Jesus went into the room, and helped her up. Took her hands and said, no, the child is not dead. The child's just sleeping. And they were ready to bury her. The child was healed in that moment. Jesus picked her up, and she was healed. So that's what I have been doing, not taking anything but Jesus' example. I'm taking Jesus' example as my own in the work that I've been doing for 30 plus years. plus. 30 plus years. And that's really why I'm here today, is to share this with you and to do work with you. And we'll talk later about what I'm doing. That's during the announcements. But it's about healing. And I will tell you, it has been my experience. I've worked with well over 8,500 people now. It's getting close to 9,000. I sort of decide it's now 9,000. I don't know. I'm not going 2, 3, 4. I'm not making that kind of a count. But I do know it's been that kind of number. And I know anything can be healed. And when I say anything, I mean anything can be healed. I've had the pleasure of working in San Francisco, where I met Heidi. The pleasure of working with, they have had a very difficult AIDS issue in San Francisco. I've had the pleasure of working with HIV and AIDS people, and they have had healings. Cancer people, yes. Heart disease, yes. Whatever. And it's not me that does it. It's divine love, touch, and the activity of God. That's what heals. Jesus set a marvelous example. We talk about him being our elder brother or way shower here in Unity. We talk about that. Jesus is our elder brother, our way shower. And he showed us. He showed us. He showed us. Anything is possible. Anything can be healed. Anything at all. So, it's my pleasure to be with you today. I could perhaps give you some examples of that, but let me just say, anything can be healed. If there's any issue in your life that needs attention, I'm happy to do that this afternoon and tomorrow. It's a privilege to work with Unity folks, probably because you all are. I was in Memphis, and I said, I want to invite you all to come to my demonstration after, today it's at 11:30, my demonstration workshop, and work with one of you and do a healing. I would like to invite you all to come. And a woman sitting right about over there stood up and said, in Memphis, excuse me, Reverend, but y'all is not plural. It's all y'all. So since that time, I've said I want to invite all y'all to my workshop after the service, and we'll hold it in here and have a really nice time. And you'll see this at work. You'll see this at work with one of you. It's a beautiful experience to do this work. It is the activity of divine love. It's divine love in action. Divine love in action. After the example of Jesus and after the example of our co-founders, Charles and Myrtle Fillmore. They did this for years. Themselves. Hands-on, pray, heal. That's it. That's it. So, and Jesus demonstrated this for all of us, that anything is possible, anything is possible through the power of divine love and prayer. Anything is possible. And thank you for inviting me today. It is my joy to be here. God bless you.